Well, thank you all for joining us today for Artificial Intelligence in Museums. We're happy to have you with us. The FAM Foundation is a not-for-profit organization that provides educational programs and services for the professional growth of Florida's museum community. The FAM Foundation hosts a variety of webinar-based and in-person continuing education programs. We offer resources on a variety of current topics. Some of those are hosted on our website and some on our YouTube channel. And we also organize a large annual conference and provide various platforms for museum professionals to connect with one another. I want to thank our partners today on this program, our sponsors, the Florida Department of State, Division of Arts and Culture, Visit Florida, and the National Endowment of the Arts. So my name is Carmen Godwin. I'm the FAM Foundation Program Manager. If you have any questions or any issues whatsoever, just type them into your chat box and I will try and help you. It does say FAM after my name, if that makes it easier to find me. I want to introduce our Executive Director, Melinda Horton. Melinda's a little bit under the weather, but we are so happy that you are able to join in with us for just a little while so that you can say hi to everybody.
Hey everyone, so I have a very croaky voice today and I've been sick all week, so I'm going to stay on long enough to welcome you and then I'll let Carmen take it from here so that you don't have to listen to me cough or watch me cough. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Kevin, in advance for agreeing to do this. What an important topic this is. I appreciate all of you taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us on the webinar. We found the webinar so helpful in people not having to travel, be able to do work from their own desks, and it just makes it a lot easier to get people together. We're still planning some in-person stuff later this year, so stay tuned for that, but we will also have our upcoming webinars for the next 3 months after this. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your support of FAM, and thank you, Carmen, for all of your hard work.
Absolutely. Yeah, so stick around for the end. I'll have a slide that has all the upcoming programs that Melinda mentioned, but we have monthly programs and some of those are meetups and some of those are more educational based, and we love for you to participate in those as well. For this program, just some housekeeping. We do have closed captioning available. You just go to your control bar and you can actually click on CC or closed captioning and turn it on or off. Also, just so you're aware, the presentation is being recorded. If you have any questions for me or for Kevin, use the chat box on the control panel. You can also unmute yourself, but if you do use the chat box, Kevin said anytime during the program, I can interrupt and just make sure that your questions get answered. So I'll be keeping an eye on that chat box. But if you feel brave, you can also unmute and ask questions. We will be sending a survey out after the program just to understand not only what you think about this program, but what types of additional education you'd like to see in the future offered from FAM. So please take 5 minutes to fill that out. It really does help us determine what we're going to be doing in the future. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker today. Kevin McNulty is co-founder and president of Netweave Social Networking, named Small Business of the Year by the Manatee Chamber of Commerce and Associate Member of the Year by the Florida Attractions Association. Netweave provides social media services for over 70 clients in the United States. Kevin delivers a series of social media courses, is an adjunct professor at State College of Florida, and has been a guest lecturer for universities and state, regional, and international associations. Kevin shared his expertise in AI at the September FAM conference. And many of you know this, this technology is advancing so fast that we are really excited to have him back to give us an update on artificial intelligence in our industry today. Again, Kevin, as Melinda said, we thank you so much for being here with us, and I am going to pass over the baton to you.
Okay, great. Let me just get my screen share going here. And let me just add my thanks to the chorus for everybody being here today. At the end of this presentation, I'll have my email address for everybody. And I take questions forever. So if you didn't get to ask your question today, or you didn't think of it until tomorrow, please email me and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. So today we're going to dive in. We got a lot of things to cover, and I'm going to do the best I can to respect all our time. But if you do have questions, do ask along the way. I'm not a wait for the end kind of guy. So please, if you have questions, let's go ahead and ask them. So the first thing that we want to do is to give you some context for what we're going to be talking about. And so as I'm introducing the topic here, I want you to take a look at this slideshow and think about what all these people that you see here have in common. And Greg Mills chimed in on the chat box and got it absolutely right. None of these people ever existed. But the thing is, neither did that music. So both those faces, those photos, and that music were generated by artificial intelligence. And the technology is advancing at such a rate, it's absolutely crazy. Um, and I'm going to give you a little demonstration of how far we've come. And if you were at my session at the conference, just in the short few months since September, the progress has been amazing. And you'll see that in the course of the presentation here. So
Kevin,
we want to talk.
Greg asked if it asked Mid-Journey.
These photos are actually, they're probably done with Midjourney, but they're hosted by a website called thispersondoesnotexist.com. And so that website is hooked up to an image generator. I believe it's Midjourney. I don't know the person that runs the website. But every time you hit refresh, it just gives you a new face. And you can just keep going through them. Now, not all of them are that. The one in the center was actually created. That one was created on a platform called Stable Diffusion. It's an open source platform that two college sophomores actually used to create a series of images of this woman and then create a profile for her Reddit. And they were making quite a bit of money with her profile selling images of herself on the internet. And then the one in the bottom left was actually, I know that one was done with Midjourney by a guy who he restores daguerreotypes as a living and decided to see what he could do with Midjourney. And that's what he got. All the rest are from thispersondoesnotexist.com. Okay, so let's first talk about AI. Now, AI is a broad topic, and we're only going to look at a little fraction of it today. But generally speaking, artificial intelligence is a branch of computer science that creates systems or machines capable of performing tasks that typically require human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision-making, and language translation. In fact, I am AI. Sure, this video is based on a video of me I uploaded as a sample, but I didn't actually say any of these words on camera. My movements and voice are being generated by an AI. Somehow amazing and creepy at the same time, right? So that video, if you were at my presentation in September, you saw a much more obvious use of AI in the video where the young woman explains AI to you. And you could tell the lips weren't quite right. You know, there was still a lot to work on there. But just in those few short months now, you can upload 2 minutes of yourself talking on video, just 2 minute recording of you. And it almost takes longer to upload it than it does to generate it. You can put any script in there you want, and it will create the video to match the script, mouth movements, match your voice, No special equipment needed. This was done really quickly this morning with my cell phone. This was not anything practiced or polished at all. I just wanted to see how quickly I could get something up, and boom, here it is. So, now, as we get into AI and talk about why this is such a game changer, fundamentally AI, especially generative AI, and we're going to talk about the different types of AI, but generative AI is pretty much what everybody thinks of when you think ChatGPT, et cetera. The reason it's such a game changer is because it changes the nature of the human computer interaction. It used to be that if we wanted a computer's help on something, we had to solve the problem first so that we could tell the computer how to solve it. The computer could then do it much faster, more efficiently, at a bigger scale, but we had to know how to get to the answer at the end because we had to program that into the computer. With AI, that's not the case anymore. You can simply bring a problem to an AI and say, see what you can do with this. And it can generate novel solutions all on its own. So that kind of upends how we've always interacted with computers. And that's why it's going to be such a disruptive technology here over the next year or two. Now, when we talk about types of AI, the thing that you picture when you think of Terminator or iRobot or any of those science fiction tropes, right? You're thinking probably of a general AI. A general AI would have human-like cognitive abilities across a wide range of tasks. Basically, they could do anything a person could do, right? Except that we're still years away from that. Months ago, I would have said decades. I'm no longer convinced it's even a decade until we get there. This is OpenAI, the company who makes ChatGPT. This is their stated reason for being. This is their mission, is to create the first general AI. And they're making pretty good progress. So, and this is where you start getting into things like, does the AI become self-aware? Does it have consciousness, sentience, all those arguments? We're not quite there yet, okay? Right now, what we have is narrow AI. All the AI tools that are out on the market and the generative AI tools that we're talking about today are all narrow AIs. They've been built and trained to perform one function. In ChatGPT's case, that's text. It basically is a big machine that predicts the next best word when you're asking for output. Now, they've integrated other things into it. Like now, if you use the paid version of ChatGPT, you can also generate images. That's DALL-E 3. That's OpenAI's image generator. So it's still a separate tool trained to do one thing. They're just kind of bringing it all together under one brand name with ChatGPT. But still, everything that's out on the market right now is narrow AI. There's no self-awareness. And while it seems very human-like in the way it converses with you, for example, it doesn't have any kind of self-awareness. And in fact, despite the fact that it seems very human and it's very easy to anthropomorphize or ascribe to an AI human characteristics, it really is just predicting the next best word. I had a very interesting chess game once with ChatGPT. I asked it if it played chess, and it said yes at a high level. And I said, okay, let's play a game. And we got a couple moves into it, and then it proposed a move that would be illegal. It wanted to move its queen out, but the queen was still hemmed in by its pawns. I said, you can't do that. That move's illegal. It's like, oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Here's my move. And it was still an illegal move. And after a little bit of back and forth about this, I said, I don't think you really know how to play chess at a high level. And then ChatGPT said, you're right. I don't play very well. I'm still learning. And I said, did you lie to me when you said you played at a high level? And it said, I was optimistic about my ability. And that's become my new favorite excuse with my wife. dinner's going to be late. I was optimistic about my ability. But it's very easy to say, well, ChatGPT got caught in a lie and now it's backpedaling. It's not. It's giving you what it thinks is the best answer to your question. And that's all it's doing. It doesn't have any broader understanding of what it's actually accomplishing. Now, in AI, even narrow AI, there's a subset of AI known as generative AI, and that's what we're talking about today. And that's mostly what all the buzz has been about. AI itself, where a machine learns something, AI has already been used for quite some time in looking at large data sets and spotting patterns or categorizing new entries. In fact, AI has been used for a couple of years at least in Facebook, in the newsfeed algorithm. So the kinds of content you get put in front of you are determined, at least in some part, by an AI that looks at all the other things that you've done on the platform and all the content that's out there and categorizes what it thinks would be the best next thing for you. But it's not generating a post for you to look at. It's just categorizing what's already there. Generative AI can actually come up with novel solutions on its own that no one has ever done before. And it can do that with text. It can do that with images, with video, with sound. And we're going to show you some examples of that. But generative AI is mostly what we're going to talk about today. Generative AI is ChatGPT. And that ChatGPT is probably not only the 800-pound gorilla, it's the one everybody knows. It's the one that's made the news. And everybody's probably at least tried the free version. I'm here to tell you, if all you've done in AI is tried the free version of ChatGPT, you ain't seen nothing yet. Because the paid version is in another solar system. If the free version of ChatGPT is all you've tried, you learned about automobiles by test driving a Yugo, right? The paid version is like getting into a Corvette. So I would encourage you to experiment further. And there are some other tools that we're going to talk about here that you can try for free as well.
We just had a comment. I just wanted to make sure everybody heard. Greg had just said that he had a paid account with ChatGPT, but every new conversation he had to retrain it with how he preferred to interact.
There in the paid version of ChatGPT, there is a function called custom instructions, and you can actually put custom instructions in there that determine how it interacts with you from that point forward. The generative AIs that are on the market right now, ChatGPT included, do not learn based on your interaction with them. They have already done their learning. The P in GPT stands for pre-trained. So it has already done its training. It can remember that you like a certain thing, but it is not going to alter its behavior or its knowledge base based on what you've done in the past. So, for example, Brennan wanted to know if there was an example instruction. Sometimes I'll have several paragraphs of history that I want to use for an on this day in history post, but I'm not going to put several paragraphs in. People aren't going to read that. So I'll put it into ChatGPT and I'll ask it, can you summarize this in a paragraph that keeps the most pertinent facts and rewrite it in a professional yet conversational tone? In the free version of ChatGPT, anything I wanted it to rewrite, I would have to remind it to do it in a professional and conversational tone. In the paid version, I can put in my instructions, all your output should be in a professional but conversational tone. And now I don't have to add that to every prompt that I put in. So let's talk about some examples of generative AI. First, the image generators. This is not a photograph of a dog. This is an image generated by Midjourney. And you'll notice that it did even subtle things like if you look right on the nose, there's a little purple that wouldn't actually be on the dog's nose, but it's an artifact of photographing that particular sunlight at that particular angle, glistening off a wet nose. It's a lens artifact, and the AI built that into the image. So it can do some amazing things. Midjourney is one of my favorites. I think it's some of the highest quality output, although DALL-E, OpenAI's image generator, has really stepped it up. When we met a few months ago, I wouldn't have recommended DALL-E as being on par with Midjourney, but DALL-E version 3 was released and it is pretty impressive. So I would say it is right up there. Both of those are proprietary programs. Midjourney it has its own website. DALL-E is part of the OpenAI universe. Stable Diffusion is what they call open source. So anybody can run Stable Diffusion if they have the right setup on their machine, and they can train their own models and develop their own fine tuning on the image generation. And lots of people do. Most of the image generators you've never heard of before that are out there are really just front ends that hook up to an instance of Stable Diffusion that somebody's running on a server. So if you go to, for example, Leonardo AI, Leonardo AI is a great front end, but it's basically just hooked up to Stable Diffusion. And it offers several different models that a variety of people have trained in different things. So, for example, there's a model that will produce images that look like paper art. There's some that look like retro 50s cartoons. There are some that look photoreal. All those types of things. And you can just select from those models to generate an image if you want something in that style. So that's Stable Diffusion. And then, of course, Adobe's image generator is Firefly. And that now is baked into the Adobe Creative Suite. Adobe Photoshop is using AI image generation as part of the program now. You can erase a part of an image and tell it to fill that erased section with whatever you want, and it will generate that image to drop into that section. So these image generators are getting better and better and better. And remember, all of the examples that I show you today, if you think, well, that's probably not the best thing, or I wouldn't maybe use that right as is, remember that what I'm showing you today is the worst AI is ever going to be, right? It's only getting better. It's not going backwards. So as impressive as this stuff is today, I can't even tell you what it's going to be in another 4 or 5 months. All right, so that's image generation. Now, another category of generators are the audio generators. And here's an example. Though it sounds like I'm reading this to you, the voice is actually an AI-generated clone of my voice created with a tool called 11 Labs. Kind of creepy, right? This kind of tool is perfect for consistent voiceover on instructional or educational videos, ad reads on podcasts, and other applications where you need to use the same voice for a variety of tasks over a long period of time. So again, not my voice. I did not say that. I typed that into 11 Labs and it generated that voice using artificial intelligence. And my kids claim they can hear the difference, but just about no one else can. And you'll notice that inflection was much more natural than the Hey Gen video. 11 Labs now has speech-to-speech generation. So you can read a piece of text with exactly the inflection you want, and then change that into any voice you like. So for example, and this is something that's good for all you museum folk out there. Maybe you have a particular volunteer or staff member who is kind of the face of the brand. They do a lot of your videos, or you have a volunteer with a really great voice that does a lot of audio work for you. We have a pet store client where the owner manager has done a lot of videos in the past, but she's so busy anymore that she can't really do them. So we have an AI voice clone of her, and we shoot whatever video we need, whatever B-roll or stock footage or anything that we shoot in the store. And then I read the script into 11 Labs with all the proper inflection that Rachel would use. And then I just have 11 Labs change my voice into hers. And that's what we use for the voiceover for the video. So this is great for that kind of work. And again, getting better and better quality wise. Though it sounds like I'm reading. Oh, sorry. Now, video generators are out there too. You saw the Hey Jen that we did of me. This is a Hey Jen video that showcases Hey Jen's translation capability. So if you have visitors from different countries or cultures, if you are in a multilingual market, you can take existing videos that you have in English and you can have them translated into other languages. But not only does it translate the audio, it changes the video. So watch Jack Nicholson's mouth as we go through this very famous scene from A Few Good Men.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
No puedes manejar la verdad. Hijo, nous vivons dans un monde où il y a des murs et ces murs doivent être gardés par des hommes armés. Qui va le faire? Toi? Czy to porucznik Weinberg? Mam większą odpowiedzialność niż możesz sobie wyobrazić. Płaczesz nad Santiago i przeklinasz Marines. 五战队，你有哪奢侈？你有行不知我所知的圣地亚哥的撕碎悲惨，但可能拯救生命。
Now, there were 8 other languages I could have picked, right? I figured that was enough to demonstrate the capability. But notice that his lips were moving to the dialogue in each language and that it was still Jack Nicholson's voice through the whole thing. So if you have a video from your director or president or chairman or something like that, that say welcomes guests as they walk in, you could literally have that in any of these languages, and with the touch of a button on a touch screen, people could have it done in the language they like. Or if you have an app, any videos that they display on the app can be displayed in their language. So it's a really powerful ability. There are also video generators, one called InVideo. I didn't have it up here in the examples, but InVideo, you can type in a script and it will put together an entire video for you using stock footage. They have an iStock account, Adobe Stock account, Storyblocks, and it will go pull out the clips that it thinks best fit your script and generate the entire video, voiceover and all. You just put in your script and the video comes out. Or if you do a video about current events, you can just give it one link to a news story. Using that, it will go find 2 or 3 other sources to check as well, write its own script, compose all of the stock footage that it thinks is relevant, and generate the entire video. You put in a URL, and at the end, you got a 1.5-minute long video about a news story. It's really pretty impressive. So here are a few of the players now, right? I think at last count, we were up to 11,000 tools. And I think when we spoke in September, I might have said 3,000. That was about what it was. That's how fast new technology is coming to this field. Some of them are not good. Some of them are just thrown together to make a buck, right? But here are some of the major ones. And the ones in red are ones I actually used in composing this slide deck. If you haven't noticed already, every image in this deck is AI generated. That the videos, all of these still images, they're all done with Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, etc. So you see there the tools that I've used in making this deck. Soundful is the one I used to get the music that went with the faces at the beginning. But they have generators for image, video, music. It will write music for you, code. So it will actually write code in several different computer languages, and text generators. So, and of course, text generators like ChatGPT and Bard, most everybody here has tried, but we'll demonstrate. So how do we use this? And in particular, how do we use it in museums? So what I'm giving you here is a combination of things that already exist and things that either will exist soon or could exist with very little effort. But these are possibilities for all of you in the museum space that I think are going to really open up some possibilities for you. So, for example, you could use generative AI in your virtual tour, either a virtual tour that people can take on your website, or maybe it's a tour that they take on an app as they walk through the museum on the phone. But you can be adding layers of information in augmented reality as they look at things or whatnot. But you 3D scan the place to create the tour, but you can then put layers of information over that. And with generative AI, it can be in any language, and it can change as the images change. If it's describing an exhibit and you change the exhibit, as long as the AI can see the change, it can change its description. So it's crazy. And it can, depending on how you set it up, it can actually customize the tour that this person is taking based on their previous behavior. So if it noticed that they look at a particular thing, or it could, I mean, it's even possible to check their browser history, they're with cookies and whatnot. So there are a lot of possibilities here. And everything that I tell you is going to simultaneously seem amazing and creepy, right? Because that's the nature of this stuff. But just keep in mind the possibilities that are on the table here. Generative images for museums open up a whole new world. So this image that you see on the page here is something that Chad Light at the Fountain of Youth Archaeological Park is working on a display of what the St. Augustine areas, what those indigenous Americans would have looked like in the pre-Columbian era. And what he's doing is he's using archaeological evidence to support the prompts that he's writing. And then, of course, he's going in and making sure, one, everything's accurate. He does a little bit of touching up himself based on things that he knows or things he knows the computer is doing wrong. So, there's still a human in the loop here. But this particular image is one he allowed me to use. He has not touched this one up at all. That's exactly how it came out of Midjourney. And it's one of his throwaway pile. That's how good the stuff he's working on is. But can you imagine the exhibit that you could make with images that are this realistic? This makes the history real to the people looking at it in a way that a mannequin just can't, right? So the possibilities here are mind-blowing. You can also use it to create unique and personalized experiences, right? Museum visitors, if you have an app that has an AI on board, like a ChatGPT powered chatbot, it can do, let's say you're an art museum, it can ask, who are your favorite artists? And then it can put together a tour of your museum based on that customer's response. And it could be different for the next customer. Or if this person has been there before, it can store the history of the last tour it gave them and say, last time you were here, you saw this, this, and this. Do you want to see more of the same kind of thing today? Or do you want to do something different? And then it can construct a tour based on what the user wants. And it makes things, even if everything that you have is hanging on a wall or behind a display case, part of the challenge for us in museums is staying relevant to a generation of consumers that want experiences. They don't want to just look at things in a case or behind a velvet rope, right? They want to be interactive. This gives us ways to be interactive with things that we maybe just can't let the visitor touch or handle or physically interact with. It gives them a way to make the whole thing interactive, and it makes it a different experience every time they come. So it's not necessarily just, oh, I've been there once, I've seen everything. It also can massively increase your accessibility with very little cost to you. We talked about different languages, but you can also use AI-generated audio descriptions for the visually impaired. You can have it with GPT Vision, can actually look at an image and figure out what's in it. In fact, if you use the paid version of GPT, this is an exercise that a friend of mine actually did with ChatGPT. He bought a bookcase at IKEA, and he took a picture of the instructions, and he asked ChatGPT to walk him through building it. And ChatGPT told him what tools he needed, what he needed to do next. It said you need an Allen wrench, and he took a picture of his tool chest. Do I have an Allen wrench? Yes, the Allen wrenches are in the upper left corner. Grab one and find the right size. And then put together step by step, took a picture and said, did I do it right? And GPT said, no, that the middle shelf is upside down. You need to take that out and put it back in the other way around. So with that level of accuracy in looking at an image, you can have an AI describing an exhibit top to bottom for somebody who can't see it. And if you change the exhibit, you don't have to re-record anything. The AI just changes what it's describing because now it sees something different. So you can do AI generated sign language for interpreting audio to hearing impaired people, the other way around, right? And you can get AI generated transcripts of audio content for hearing impaired. So improving accessibility across the board in ways that aren't going to cost you a fortune, right? These are actually pretty simple implementations. You can also engage with new audiences, right? Creating content in different languages, but you can also kind of curate content that appeals to specific demographics. You can actually ask ChatGPT a question and it will answer it. Then you can say, okay, explain it to me like I'm 5. And it will. You know, now explain it as if I were a veteran. Now explain it as if I didn't know anything about this or that, or and it comes up with a different answer every time, custom to that audience. You can create exhibits that are specifically designed for social media, right? You can have an interactive touch platform that they can automatically share things. For example, somebody can go to an interactive, let's say, again, you're an art museum, right? You've got an interactive touchpad. Somebody can go to their Facebook, get a picture of their dog, put it in there. It will do a painting of the dog as if Vincent van Gogh did it, and then they can share it to their Facebook. So things like that are entirely possible with this technology. And of course, even outside exhibits and whatnot, you should already be using generative AI for marketing. These AI tools like ChatGPT, I keep referring to it because it's the one everybody knows, but there are other tools out there. I can recommend for text generators, if you haven't tried it already, try Bard, which is Google's. Also try Claude, C-L-A-U-D-E. That's by Anthropic, I believe. And all of them work similarly, but different. For factual content, for example, I prefer Bard. Bard has a much more straightforward approach. ChatGPT has an affinity for adverbs that cannot be humanly explained. And so it can get a little flowery and a little verbose when you ask it to do writing for you. I frequently prefer the output of Bard or Claude for something like that. But all of them can do similar things as far as ideation goes. Sometimes I'm just stuck. Like, I need to write a blog post today. What can I write a blog post about? Or give me 10 ideas for a blog post, or give me 10 ideas for a social media post. And its ability to, it doesn't have a rut to be in, right? When we do for our pet store client, a good example, every Tuesday we do Trivia Tuesday. I have been thinking of pet trivia questions for 14 years. I'm tapped out. I've done everything I know about pets and everything I can think of. But now I can just go to ChatGPT. I have a saved chat, so it remembers all of the questions it's already told me and say, just give me another one. You know, give me a pet trivia question about either dogs or cats that is relatively easy to answer, but still challenging. I can give that exact instruction and it will do it for me. So writing copy, again, sometimes it's a little flowery and I don't think I've ever used anything straight out of AI. But what I get out of AI does all the heavy lifting for me. You know, we asked it to, we have a client on International Drive in Orlando. We said, write a blog post that lists 5 things to do on Valentine's Day on International Drive. And it wrote 7 paragraphs of gold and 1 paragraph of complete and total crap, something you cannot even do in Florida, let alone on International Drive. And that's a problem with AI. It's called hallucination. AI will say with absolute confidence something that is completely made up. And so you still have to be the expert in the room. We still had to know what you could and couldn't do on iDrive, right? And so we were able to curate that and edit it out and come up with something else to put in that spot. But it turned an hour's worth of writing into like 10 minutes of editing. So huge productivity boost, huge time saver there. And also generating images, videos, music with no rights issues, right? You don't have to worry about paying for a license for this piece of music or this piece of video or this image. You have the rights to do whatever. Whether or not you have a copyright on something you generated is still kind of being decided in court. So US courts have ruled that computer AI generated images can't be copyrighted. China has ruled the opposite, and I think it's probably not settled. I think that's still going to be an ongoing question. But you don't have to worry about anybody else having rights to it. And that saves you a ton of time and effort in marketing. Now, using AI, I know we're getting short on time, so I'm going to hurry a little bit. But all of these AI generators that we've talked about so far are based on something called a prompt. And your ability to write good prompts is probably your most important skill in adopting AI. So what you want to do with the prompt is you want to give enough detail so that the AI truly understands what you're looking for, but you want to leave a little bit of latitude for the AI to be creative. I know that sounds weird, but these generative AIs are coming up with new content. This is novel. They're not just taking something they were taught and barfing it back to you. They are actually combining what they know into a new novel output. And you want to give them a little latitude to be able to do that. So you don't want to be too restrictive in what you ask for. But you also have to remember that these large language models are what we call zero-shot reasoners. You ask for something, they will give you an answer with 100% confidence, whether it's right, wrong, or really what you wanted, because you asked for something and their job is to give you output. So the worse you are at asking, the worse output you'll get, but you'll always get output. So you can actually provide warm-up questions or basically give context for what it is you're asking for so that the AI can give you better output. So you can say, I'm writing a Facebook post for an audience that knows this, and here's what I'm writing about. Can you give me a paragraph on that topic in that style? So the more context you give it, the better you're going to get. You can also iterate. So if it gives you a version and you don't quite like it, you can ask it to try again, given the qualifications that you have. So for instance, I was trying to get DALL-E 3. I'm on ChatGPT Plus, which is the paid version, and I'm trying to get DALL-E 3 to give me an image of a car on a white background. And every time it does it, it's putting shadows in the background or making gradients. And I want plain white because I have to put it on top of something that's white and I don't want to see edges, right? And so I had to go back and forth several times telling it what it was doing wrong, but it eventually got it. You know, it says, here's a car on a plain white background. And I'm like, well, that background is clearly not plain. You have a shadow right here. You have a reflection right here. Okay, here's another version. And okay, now those shadows are gone, but you put a gradient in the top corner. You got to take that out. Eventually it got where I wanted to go, but we had to iterate. So do not be afraid to iterate. Also, chain of thought prompts actually lead to better outputs and fewer hallucinations. So the classic example there is that if you give ChatGPT a riddle of, say, I have 16 balls, half of them are golf balls, half of those are green. How many green balls are there? It now I don't know if this has changed since this example, but at the time they did it, it would always say 8, which isn't the correct answer, right? The correct answer is 4 because you have to take half and then half again. But if you gave it the same thing, I've got 16 balls, half of them are golf balls, half of those are green. How many balls are green? Show me your chain of thought. Then it breaks the problem down into steps and it says, okay, first there are 16 balls. Now half of those balls are golf balls. So there are 8 golf balls. Half of the golf balls are green. So there are 4 green balls. It gets it correct. Nothing changed except for you asking for the chain of thought, but it slowed down and looked at it step by step and got the answer correct. So interesting. Also, you can do things like ask for sources. You can ask it to cite the sources if it's quoting you facts, and then you need to go check the sources because not only can it make up facts, it can make up sources. So you need to double check those, but ask for sources. You can also give it a preliminary instruction like, I'm going to ask you a question, and if you are not 100% sure of the answer, I want you to start your answer with, I'm not sure. Then you ask it a question, and if there is uncertainty, the answer will start with, I'm not sure, and then it will give you the answer it would have given you anyway, because it has to give you the answer, right? It's that zero shot reasoning. But you'll know that there's a level of uncertainty there. So you can try those things. But hallucinations do happen. We don't know why they happen, and we don't fully understand how they happen, so we can't stop it yet. There are some very smart people working on the problem. Some very smart people say it's not a problem you're ever going to be able to solve. So you still have to be the expert in the room. And I, for that reason alone, would never put AI as customer facing all by itself without a human checking the output, right? Or without a human at least checking in on it and making sure you're getting accurate experiences. So here's an example of how a prompt works in GPT. This is the free version. This is GPT 3.5, but you want to be specific, okay? So can you tell me about cat breeds is going to give you a completely different answer than cat breeds that are good for people with allergies. You've narrowed it down much more now, right? So you want to be specific. You want to state the intent. Why are you asking, right? Instead of just saying, explain quantum physics, I'm helping my 5th grader. Can you explain quantum physics briefly? Now it has context. It's not going to go into big, complicated theories. It knows it needs a 5th grade level explanation. Also, use correct spelling and grammar in your prompts, no matter what tool you're using. They have been trained well enough that they can 9 times out of 10 figure out what you meant, right? But you're just going to increase your chances of getting what you want by making sure your spelling and grammar are correct. And then define your output format. Um, can you explain 5 things about this topic and give me it in a bullet pointed list? Or I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation. Can you write me 5 slides on this topic, right? So you give it some limitations. All right. As we use it, here are some things to think about. Again, make sure you can fact check the output, right? Also, keep in mind, AI is advancing faster than our understanding of controls and safety measures. Most of the biggest players in this space are working very hard to make sure there are good guardrails in place. But things are moving pretty fast. So that's another reason I would always want a human in the loop of deciding what we do and what it's going to look like and what it's going to say. Also, you got to look at there's ethical concerns. There are ethical concerns with the training data, ethical concerns with whether or not we use an AI output. Like we had to have a conversation with our client where we're using the manager's voice in the videos. We had to sit down and decide organizationally, are we comfortable with that? And where we landed was we're comfortable using it as long as we never try to say or even imply that this is really Rachel, right? We just use the voice and we let people make their own assumptions. It never says, this is Rachel at Leo and Lucky's with a new update for you or whatever, right? So everybody's got to find their own comfort level with that. You got to figure that out on your own. And of course, there is the one kind of unspoken thing in the back of our heads, especially those of us who have read and watched a lot of sci-fi, is what happens when AI's best interest no longer aligns with human best interest? That's actually a part of the field of AI, and it's called alignment. And all the big players are working very hard on alignment. But you also have these open source things, like you have the open source stable diffusion for images, Meta's large language models for text generation, they're called Llama. They're open sourcing all of that so anybody can use them. And if anybody can use them, that means that they get to determine what the guardrails and safety measures are. Like right now, if you ask ChatGPT how to make a bomb, it will refuse to tell you, right? But that doesn't mean that somebody's not going to come out with a large language model that knows that information and will not hesitate to tell it to you. So that's something that we need to look at as a challenge for AI in general as we go forward as a species, right? What are some of the limitations on AI as it stands today? Well, the AI doesn't understand what it's telling you. That's something to always keep in mind. There's a very good example of Alphabet, Google, created an AI to play the game Go. An Asian strategy game has existed for centuries, and they taught it to play, and it learned it so well that it beat a world champion 3 out of 4 matches, and in fact beat him so badly he retired. He said the era of humans in the game of Go is over, and he walked away from the game. But they had an amateur play the AI with a novel strategy, a strategy that would absolutely get you slaughtered if you played against a human, because a human could see it coming from a mile away. But since the AI had never been trained in the AI doesn't know the object of the game. It only knows the next best move to win based on what it's seeing on the board. When it sees something on the board it's never seen before, it can't adjust because it doesn't know what the object of the game is. It doesn't understand the game. So it can't form a strategy. It can only form a response. And that's what we're talking about with these tools. They have an overconfidence in the face of uncertainty. It's that zero-shot reasoning. Yep, here's the answer. Is it true? Not really sure, but I'm going to say it is. Also, one of the problems in the field is what we call long-term coherence. It's how long does the AI remember the conversation that I've had with it. How far back does it go? If we started this conversation days ago, does it remember what I started off with? And all of these models have varying degrees of long-term coherence. The paid version of ChatGPT probably has the best long-term coherence of all of these. But that's another limitation to it, is that remembering what it was asked to do by you in the first place, or how that conversation has evolved. We talked about the hallucination problem. And the way these things work is all what they call black box, right? We give it a series of inputs. It gives us a series of outputs. We tell it what outputs are right, and it learns. But how it gets from input to output happens completely out of our ability to see it. It's just like teaching a child. You can't go into their brain and see how they made that connection. It's the same thing with an AI. We don't know exactly how it arrived at the correct conclusion. So it doesn't really understand the broader picture of what we're asking it to do, and we don't really understand exactly how it learns. So those are two very big areas of uncertainty where it seems like we should have a little overlap, right? But we don't yet, and that's one of the limitations of it right now. Also, a lot of people are using it as a search engine because it gives very quick and well-explained answers. It's like asking somebody a question rather than searching for something on Google and having to filter through all of the results. But remember that hallucination problem. These are not reliable search engines. So use your AI-assisted search on Google or Bing, but remember that it's still subject to hallucinations, and you still got to check the output. All right, so that brings us to the end of our hour. I know that it was a lot of information. Here's my email address. Please feel free to email me any questions that you have. But if you do have a question right now, I'm happy to take it.